Welcome to my build video. I have spent the league making this build work, but before we talk about it, let's run through your typical benchmarks. This Tier 16 map is no match for my build. I am able to play on a controller and fire half of my skills in the wrong direction. It simply does not matter. With this build you will be teleporting around so much these monsters will miss half of their skills too. What this build loses in damage and visual clarity, it makes up for in speed and satisfaction. We just got a dink off screen. Is that a spirit gem? Wow. Moving on to Zesht. While he is a shadow of his former self from the 0.1 days, he still has a health pool of about 15 million. But that amount of HP is no match for my balls, taking him down with ease. Now we are taking on the big boy. The pinnacle boss of pinnacle bosses, the Uber Arbiter of Ash. I won't lie to you boys, the Uber Arbiter put up a bit of a fight. While this build is certainly capable of defeating him, you will have to deal with his bullshit mechanics most of the time. We could probably swap out some gems for more damage or exposure, but I am too lazy to change out gems for different content. I just want to zoom and acquire tinks without that much thought being put into it. I don't even like fighting this boss because his keys are so expensive and the drops are usually not that great. Anyways, here we finally deal the killing blow and get rewarded greatly for our troubles. Wow. So boys, if you are someone who wants to play like the fub guns of the world, blinking through maps every second with a Temporalis, but you don't have several mirrors to fund your high APM desires, this could be a build for you. This is my blood magic cast on critical ball lightning to lightning warp looper, mana and CDR stacking, crystal maxing oracle. That is quite a mouthful, which is exactly what your enemies will be receiving as you unleash your balls into unsuspecting packs. Let's start dissecting this build by first looking at our skills. First we have Spell Slinger. This comes standard on every dueling wand, but you want it to be leveled 20 so you have access to all of the support slots. Into Spell Slinger we slot in a copy of Ball Lightning, supported by acceleration, multi-shot, efficiency, and life tap. These next three skills come from our gear and there isn't too much to say about them. Purity of Ice gives us some cold resistance and the ability to use all of these supports for free. A 120 spirit value absolutely free. Wow. Consecrate comes from the staff in our second weapon set, and is just supported with a bunch of area of effect. This really doesn't do much, but let us cast a few sparks to get our rotation going again. You could completely drop this and you wouldn't even notice. Next up we have Life Remnants, and this comes from our chest piece. In this skill we are using a cool lineage gem called Cartel's Rejuvenation. This gives us stacking CDR every time we pick up a remnant. We also use Remnant Potency and Harmonic Remnants for more life and further collection distance. Since we are up close and personal with all of these monsters, and using mana as our life pool, it only makes sense to also take mana remnants. We are supporting this skill with the same thing as its life counterpart. Now we can get into the damage dealing spells in our rotation. Spark is generally our opening ability. We throw out a few to generate energy for our Spell Slinger. In Spark we are using Violenter's propulsion and rapid casting to get a bunch of cast and projectile speed. I am using Blind with it too because of some synergies on the passive tree. This isn't our main damage dealer, but with Reiki Arters the damage is respectable. It might be better to put Lightning Exposure in here, but Reiki Arters is pretty cool. Following Spark is the star of this build, Lightning Warp. We are supporting this one with Zenith 2, Efficiency, Magnified Area, Rapid Casting, and Atalui's Bloodletting since this is our main damage dealer. Since Manu is our life pool and we can overflow it, we should always be at or above max mana, allowing us to get maximum value out of Zenith. The rest of our gems are spirit buffs, and we are running a shitload of spirit to handle all of these. Start from the top. We have a crowd favorite, Blink. I am supporting Blink with the new gem from the temple that gives it 100% CDR. I am also doing something different here by using two very powerful support gems on a skill that does 0 damage. As we saw in the beginning of this video, our damage is at acceptable levels and we can afford to invest some power into quality of life. Utid's Augury and Diala's Desire give Blink an additional 4 skill levels and 10% quality. With all of this combined, my Blink has a base cooldown of 0.8 seconds, with 2 uses of the spell. Our cast on critical is slotted in with an arc to consume our lightning infusions, and ball lightning to start the chain warp reaction. Supporting both of these is Scion's Temper to shoot our projectiles in a circle, and increased energy gain to keep the balls coming. We also use a cast on Elemental Ailment as a failsafe for extra ball generation and a little bit of extra damage. In this skill we are slotting a copy of Living Bomb, a Comet, and another copy of, you guessed it, Ball Lightning. Supporting this we have Arbiter's Ignition to give us access to Archon buffs, and this skill is how we are generating fire infusions to spend on our Ball Lightning and Comet casts. The rest of our skills are just because we have extra spirit, but they do give us a ton of damage. Archmage gives us lightning damage that scales with our mana, and Elemental Conflux gives us a rotating buff of extra damage with a specific element. Both very nice skills to have. Arctic Armor is in theory a defensive layer, but I hardly notice it going off unless I blink into a pack of monsters and get knocked to the ground. I'm not going to even go over the supports in this skill because honestly you could put whatever the fuck you wanted to and I don't think you will notice a difference. I suppose now we can go through the gear for this build. With the exception of the Corrupted Covenant and Headhunter, I crafted all of this gear by myself. It would be hard to put a price on it all, but if we look at this crafting scroll, 30,000 chaos is probably a good starting point. The only 100% mandatory piece is the Covenant with a cultivated modifier removing the base life cost affix. There are cheaper versions of this chest piece without the life cost efficiency, but we are scaling gem level so much that you are going to want this efficiency. Our wand is pretty good with +5 all spells and high crit chance. I chose to desecrate this special cast speed mod because I should be at full mana most of the time, allowing me to get this extra cast speed. Our scepter here has good spirit rolls and a corruption giving extra spirit. If you price check scepters like this they appear quite expensive, but you can just buy scepters in bulk that have tier 1 or tier 2 spirit rolls and slam them in the recombinator until a successful combination. The rest of the modifiers don't matter too much, but intelligence and mana will scale your damage and health pool at the same time. Our helmet is where the bulk of our resistances are coming from. And if you wish to use Arctic Armor for a theoretical defense layer, you will need a spirit corruption on your helmet. Getting high energy shield rolls help to scale our mana here since we are taking a passive that converts our energy shield to mana. I have mentioned our chest piece a few times already, and it is the Covenant. This armor allows us to leech life from our spell damage, letting us be a blood mage without having to see that demon woman every time we open our passive tree, and maintain our Giga Chad physique, fitting for a proper archmage. Our belt is a double corrupted headhunter, with 2 resistances. Pretty much everyone is running one of these, you know what it does. Our boots are another source of resistances and mana, with some movement speed as well. These gloves are actually a craft I am a bit proud of. These have high energy shield rolls, critical damage bonus, socket effect, and a chance to gain arcane surge on critical hits. Since every one of our hits is a critical, this gives us good uptime on arcane surge, and saves us a point in the passive tree not having to take it there. Finally, for our jewelry we are using a gold ring with mana, rarity, and the desecrated modifier for cooldown reduction. This ring has 50% rarity on it, and we are mirroring it with Calendra's touch to make that 100% rarity. This is our only source of rarity on gear. Our amulet is a spirit caster amulet with maximum mana, +3 to spells, cast speed, and 5% quality of skills. Anointed with fast metabolism to make our life leech feel much smoother. For your 3 charm slots, you can use whatever you want. I am using a rite of passage with the spirit of the cat, the unique freeze charm, and the fall of the axe to get an occasional onslaught buff. For your flasks there aren't a ton of options. Obviously, Olroth is the best choice here for the instant recovery, and I like this unique mana flask since its effects always apply. One less button to press. That wraps it up for the gear, so now let's quickly take a look at our passive tree. Starting off with our ascendancy nodes, there are some really cool options. Since we are an oracle, we are gifted with the power of foresight. This unique perspective allows us to critically strike our enemies by seeing into the future like Doctor Strange. The only downside to this is for every reality where we fail our critical, it hurts our ego and reduces our critical damage bonus. My quant informed me that around 30% critical strike chance is sufficient to still benefit from our powers without losing too much damage. With that extra stat budget, we get to pile into critical damage bonus, and boy do we have a ton of it. Just over 600%, most of which comes from this passive tree. This lower branch of the ascendancy tree gives us 2 extra passive points, extra hidden options in the main passive tree itself, and the test version of a from nothing diamond straight out of POE. These nodes are really interesting because we get to stack notable passives in the tree much more than any other class in the game. We utilize this heavily in this build to grab a ton of notables all over the place. Branching out from the start, we path straight out to our first jewel socket, picking up this high-value node along the way. In this jewel socket we have an Undying Hate jewel with tribute to Kegel. This jewel arguably enables this whole build, but you don't need this exact seed to replicate what I have shown in this video. The Kerghall keystone is nice for us because it essentially guarantees that we will be at maximum mana to retain all of our conditional benefits. The other stat lines on this jewel are pretty nice too. Additional tribute makes it so that we don't have to waste too many passive points to hit the 100 tribute threshold, and the added spell damage is a nice bonus. But the real tech lies in the Ancient Reserve passive node. This is a free second wind support gem on all of your skills with no cooldown penalty. Speaking of cooldown, I spent hundreds of divines autistically rolling this jewel in my hideout until I landed on a seed that included 2 of these notables in this area. Unrestrained Intellect gives us 1% cooldown per 10 tribute. With 100 tribute and 2 of these nodes, this jewel gives us an additional 20% cooldown recovery rate. The last line on the jewel gives us a notable that increases maximum life, which we path to and take down here. Who said there wasn't life on the tree? Moving down from the jewel socket, we path over to these 2 very high value crit nodes, making sure to pick up all of this extra movement speed and cooldown recovery along the way. While we are in the neighborhood, we might as well spend 2 more passive points to pick up an extra jewel socket. Following the path upward now, we take these 2 keystones, Mind Over Matter, and Wild Surge Incantation to enable us to take all of the valuable notable skills in the area. Moving along to the right side of the tree, we path straight over to pick up Eldritch Battery, making sure to also grab these critical caster nodes along the way. The Eldritch Battery and Conduit keystones allow us to save a ton of passive points and pick up some great notables, increasing our mana, cast speed, and critical damage for only a few passive points. With the rest of our passive points we path down further to the right side of the tree to grab the Resonance and Hollow Palm keystones, grabbing the meta skill passive nodes along the way. With both of these keystones allocated, we can receive the full benefits of a time-lost jewel placed in this spiderweb-looking area of the tree. This jewel alone is giving us 160% critical damage bonus along with 8% increased maximum mana. Those are all of the big ideas behind the passive tree, but I should probably talk about some of the jewels I am using. In this socket up here I am using a regular sapphire with critical damage. Here in the middle I have a Heart of the Well with cooldown recovery and more critical damage. Finally at the top over here is a Megalomaniac jewel that gives me 2 passives with great synergies for my build. Temporal Mastery, which gives 16% cooldown recovery, and Distracted Target, which gives me 30% crit chance against blinded enemies. This is why we keep blind slotted into our Spark Gem. It is pretty unreasonable to try and get a copy of a Megalomaniac, but I would say this is far from necessary. Well, that is it, all of the tech behind this build explained. But what kind of video would this be if we didn't test out our build in the new League mechanic? This build really shines in the temple. Truly, spending 2 fucking weeks building this thing was the biggest motivation behind this build. Since you need 3 maps for 1 temple run, it became immediately obvious that the goal this league was to crystal max by being able to zoom through maps as fast as possible. Here is what the gameplay looks like in the temple. You throw a few sparks to blind the room and release a ball lightning flurry, then hold down the lightning warp button to blow your load all over the entire room. Each area is basically a tier 1 pinnacle boss, so the first room is the toughest. But once you take them down, that power is yours and access to the divine printer has been earned. Now let's see some more of those things. Wow! 88 divines in the temple. We are really going to need a dopamine detox after this one, aren't we boys? I hope you enjoyed my build video. I had an amazing time playing this league, and farmed way more currency than anyone should. I am going to miss the temple, hopefully the boys in New Zealand aren't too rough with it. Regardless, I think this game gets better with every patch and I am looking forward to big changes in 0.5 and playing the new Mirage League soon in the meantime. Thank you for watching. For now, this is goodbye.